And welcome to the 10-Minute Life Coach. I'm Jay Cleveland Payne, your personal development coordinator, and I assist people ready for improvement in developing their personal and professional goals into tangible, focused, and achievable plans of action. This is just one of the tools I use to help that work out. For more information about the 10-Minute Life Coach, the podcast, the product, and how to access me for more in-depth training, go to the website 10minutelifecoach.com. Now, we are coming up on a milestone very, very soon. In fact, the week after this week, when this one is aired, you will hear episode number 100 of the 10-Minute Life Coach podcast. And we've come a long way in the 5 years of actual time it's been alive. And the, of course, 2 years or so it's actually been produced. We had a nice long gap in time between getting up to middle 40s, up to that 50, and then getting to this 101 that's coming tomorrow. So we will celebrate with great information and great deals of stuff for the 100 episode to make it extra special. But before we get there, I want to talk about getting to that point today. And it's talking about perseverance and sometimes just plain old persistence. Now, how do we get to 100 episodes of this thing? Well, how do you get to 100 of anything over a span of time? You have to keep doing it. You have to keep being persistent in getting it done, especially if it's something that's a timely manner that isn't scattershot just as it comes to you. You have to plan and plot and get things done and get things in. Now, to be totally honest, one of the ways we were able to make this thing work a little better the second time around was by changing up the rules, or in effect, throwing out the rules that are in place for the general broadcasting and the podcasting world. And it's basically for what we built the actual original podcast around. There was a point to the podcast. There was a reason why it was put the way it was. And for the time, it worked. It seemed to work for the production, seemed to work how things were going on. But it was a longer podcast. It was a more stuffy podcast. And it just was unsustainable on the long term, which is mostly why it died. But we brought it back to life. So a pod fade came back, and then after doing a few more and a few more and a few more, we got to see results. And one of the biggest results we got to see was the number of episodes growing. So as you get closer and closer to a great milestone, a nice round number, if you will, 100 is a great thing. And a lot of podcasts don't last past 8 or 9. I think that's what they have as the sort of standard made-up number for how long a podcast goes. So this one lasting past 40 in its first iteration and then coming back to life and getting to 100 next week officially is something that is amazing in itself. The fact that we were able to come back and find some old listeners. In fact, an old listener found me on social media and asked me about this thing and said, hey, what happened to it, which made me bring it back. Was one way I knew that I need to go back and do it and make it work to the best as possible. And of course, that means making it work to the best for me as possible. So what basically changed in the process? This was originally recorded after I wrote about a 4 to 5 page script. So each page turned out to be about 5 minutes or so of content. And the whole thing came out to be a 20-minute podcast for a 10-minute life coaching lesson. But the concept was simple. I wanted the lesson in the first half of the podcast and all of the chatter and all of the sales stuff and all of the getting to know you type stuff, the social proof, if you will, at the end. So the first 10, maybe 11 minutes, we went a little long, was the lesson, and then there was the sales pitch, and then there was what's going on down the line. That made it really hard to do in a pinch. That meant you had to do a lot of writing. Then I went and basically read from the script. Then I had to edit the whole thing and turn into that. Of course, there was an intro and outro and mixing. And the biggest problem I had was going back and forth from a studio environment, which I have access to at my day job, and then my home studio from built with computers and mixers there, and sort of being on the road with random setups from either my cell phone or portable recorders, and the different systems not quite working the way I like them. And in fact, I had 3 of the same programs on 3 different computers, but because of licensing issues and different versions, they didn't talk very well to each other. When I re-established this, I went basic. I record this podcast wherever I am in a program called Audacity. And if you are a podcaster, you're very familiar with Audacity. It is a open source, more or less free audio software that works very well for basic to intermediate needs. It gets a little hard to do some serious editing, but it records, it chops things up, and moves things around and what you need. So I went to a very basic system to record it. I can record from a studio, I can record from a laptop, I can record from my phone and transfer it and easily edit it. There is no more open and close music. There is a very simple open and close speech to get into it. In fact, I've simplified it even more in the last 10 episodes, where I've gotten down to a script that's being defined and redefined episode by episode. But now we have a standardized script again for short versions of getting in to explain what's going on. But this all came about from having the persistence to keep doing it, having a reason to keep doing it. The big reason was there's a big number we're shooting for, so that was the big reason there. Another big reason, there are people who are actually listening and responding to the podcast, which makes doing anything much easier to do when you know that you have fans out there cheering you on, and sometimes even knowing you got haters out there trying to get in your way. Having those motivations made it easier to proceed and persist and pursue what we're going on. But technology made it much easier as well. And of course, after enough practice, the whole thing seems like an easy thing to do. We turn this into a very simple exercise. We hit the mic, we go over the notes, we open up, we talk. There's very little editing at this point. And when we hit the 10-minute mark, we shut it down, and then we do a little bit of promotion and sales after the bit. Try to keep to about a 12-minute recording for a 10-minute audio lesson. We think we do pretty well, or at least we do very well on all the technical aspects. We hit the time marks, we get the things in pretty quickly, and we believe we're doing very well in reaching out to people and giving them quick and easy information to digest, because that's the way it's supposed to be. You listen for 10 minutes, you turn it off, and you can instantly go and implement whatever we've talked about. And if you can't, well, what it does is it proves that if you believe that I have sound advice, the sound advice you're already trying to work on is pretty sound in itself. So you can congratulate us next week on hitting that 100 mark, because then will be the actual milestone. But we'll take plenty of early congratulations on getting back on the saddle, finding something to aim for. Just basically pointing toward that northern star and just going on and on till morning and keeping the thing going. We thank you very much for joining us for the ride, or rides, I can say, as we did it initially, and then people came back for the new versions, and the people who have given us the feedback on telling us what we're doing good and what we haven't quite figured out yet, because everything's a work in progress. And sometimes some of the things done in this podcast specifically and some other projects are done for an experimental sense to see how things work, how you react, how people react, how I react to things, to get better and better at my overall broadcasting and yakety yak world thing. So I'm going to give an early thank you to all of you for being with us for this journey. 99 episodes is not an easy thing to do, even if it is just a weekly thing to produce. And we do produce some of these in batches. I promise I'm not going to produce number 100 today, but in a few days we'll work on 100 so it can be a little extra special, put extra work into it. But we usually do 2 or 3 at a time, put them in the system, and if we don't like one profusely, we'll get rid of it or sometimes shuffle around, just like they do on TV sometimes. But 99 is a hard thing to get to. 100 will be a hard thing as well, because even though we got this far, we still got to get up and hit the mic and get on for another episode. And that's more writing, more editing, and more talking, more thinking, more researching, and more talking to you. So hopefully we'll have 99 plus 1 or 2 more. I guess that makes 200 for these life coach lessons on the audio version here. And we'll keep persisting, keep pursuing, keep going on, keep striving, keep going day by day, day by day. How do you get to 99 or 100 of something? You keep striving, keep going, you keep doing something day by day, day by day. Sometimes you're not going to feel like it. Those are the times where you know you have to just get something done. And it doesn't have to be anything great. Sometimes it literally just has to be done. Some of these haven't been so great. Some have been kind of awesome. Sometimes we just had to get them done. If you're facing something like that, situation where you want to progress, you want to get better, want to hit some milestone, sometimes you just going to have to get it done that day. Just be what you can, do what you can, and just do it and move on to the next. And eventually, you'll hit that big number like we expect to hit with next week's 100th episode. And thank you so much for joining us for the 10-Minute Podcast. This is a labor of love in a sense, but it also has to have a purpose. And the main purpose that it has is, well, I have to be salesy right now. It's the intro to the personal development training that I do. And I'm revamping a lot of it now so it's easier to understand, easier to follow, and, of course, easier to get you into the system. This, as the 10-Minute Life Coach, is a free version, more or less a sample version of very simple, basic, and easy to digest concepts that get you in and get you through a moment. But we also have, as the name will probably change, the $10 Life Coach, which is our online coaching community that will be relaunching soon. It will probably be at $10. It doesn't need to be very much. It's just a simple community where people can gather together and they can use each other for a bit of continuity and for accountability, plus a little bit of guidance from some things I have going on. And then on top of that, we'll have one-on-one coaching where you can get in contact with me and we can go one-on-one in various means, various methods. Email is a great way for coaching, also audio and some social media Skype type stuff as well. You can find out more about that coming very soon, but keep your eye out for all of that and, of course, information about just what we have right here at the website, 10minutelifecoach.com. For more information about a bunch of other things I have going on, you can check out my main website, jclevelandpayne.net. And, of course, you want to make contact. It's very simple. You can email me anytime you want to. Two email addresses I always give. One is info@jclevelandpayne.net. The other is jclevelandpayne@gmail.com. Now, I'll be honest. The Gmail is one that is always on and always going off wherever I am, so I'm checking it very often to see what's coming through. But a lot of things that come through are a little spammy, a little salesy, and so a lot of things get zapped. So if you want to make sure it's business-like, info@jclevelandpayne.net. If it's you just want to try to reach out to me, I will probably see it and respond to you pretty quickly if you send it to jclevelandpayne@gmail.com. Once again, thank you so much for being a part of what we have going on here. Without you, there is no podcast. If you like what you heard, and you're this far, so I'm assuming you like it, make sure you leave us some ratings and reviews at your favorite pod site, or just leave a review right there at our website. It'd be great to see it there for people to share it there as well. Make sure you are subscribed. If you just stumbled across this, you can click on buttons to subscribe to basically any podcast you want, including straight to iOS or Android. And the big thing you got to do is be with us next week for not only another edition of the 10-Minute Life Coach, but it's a special one. We're hitting 100 next week on the 10-Minute Life Coach.